Love him or hate him, you can't ignore him. Every punch carries intent. Every knockout sends shockwaves through a sport that never invited him in. Power backed by obsession. Pressure fueled by belief. He fights like a man with something to prove and millions watching every move. And when the lights go out, the dominance doesn't fade. It multiplies. Cruising through the city in a Ferrari SF90 Spider, a hybrid monster pushing nearly 1,000 horsepower, before disappearing into a glass-walled mansion in the hills, where silence replaces the noise and victory funds the view. From YouTube to pay-per-view, from viral clips to sold-out arenas, Jake Paul turned controversy into currency, building an empire valued at over $200 million. Punches into profit and attention into power. So, before we break down the knockouts, the headlines, and the empire built on belief and backlash, hit the like button, subscribe, and ring the bell. Because this isn't just boxing, this is disruption with money behind it. Jake Paul's story doesn't begin under bright boxing lights or inside a roaring arena. It starts in suburban Ohio, where two brothers picked up a camera and turned everyday chaos into content. Born on January 17th, 1997, Jake grew up alongside his older brother Logan in a loud, ambitious household that believed in faith, hustle, and visibility. By the time he was 10, he was already performing, learning early that attention was currency and controversy could be fuel. When Vine exploded in the early 2010s, Jake rode the wave like a natural. Millions followed, billions watched, and when Vine collapsed, he didn't fall with it. He pivoted. YouTube became his stage, pranks and stunts his language, shock value his accelerator. The numbers climbed fast, and so did the backlash. Hollywood noticed. Disney gave him a seat at the table, casting him as the loud, reckless Dirk Mann on Bizaardvark. For a moment, he looked like another influencer-turned-actor chasing longevity. Music followed. Branding followed. Team 10 became both a movement and a mess. And then, just as quickly, he walked away from the safe path. Because attention wasn't enough anymore. In 2018, Jake Paul stepped into a boxing ring. At first, it felt like spectacle. A YouTube or a playing fighter. But fights turned into wins. Wins turned into knockouts. Former athletes fell. MMA legends followed. Each victory sharpened the question no one could ignore. Was this real? Loss finally came in 2023, cracking the illusion, but not the ambition. What followed wasn't retreat, but escalation. A historic night against Mike Tyson. A business empire forming alongside the bruises. For Jake Paul, luxury isn't a reward at the end of the journey. It's part of the spectacle. It's momentum made visible. When the cameras stop rolling and the gloves come off, his lifestyle becomes another statement of intent. Bold, excessive, unapologetic. His world begins at home, but not just any home. In Puerto Rico, Jake planted his flag in a sprawling, ultra-modern mansion worth well over $15 million. It's not a place built for quiet retirement. It's designed like a compound. Twin pools catching Caribbean sunlight. A private gym forged for championship camps. A cinema room for late-night film study. And a recording studio where ambition bleeds into every creative outlet. This is an escape. It's headquarters. A place where influencer energy, boxing discipline, and business ambition collide. Before that, there was Calabasas, a near $7 million estate that embodied his Hollywood phase, loud and visible, before he shifted toward privacy, control, and scale. Step outside, and the driveway tells its own story. Jake Paul doesn't collect cars. He curates experiences on wheels. Italian engineering dominates the scene. Ferraris that blend brutal speed with futuristic hybrid power. Their engines screaming the same confidence he brings into the ring. Lamborghinis sit lower, sharper, built like weapons. Track-focused machines that look restless even at a standstill. Then there's Rolls-Royce, the Cullinan and Phantom, floating symbols of arrival, where silence, leather, and starlit ceilings replace aggression with authority. Maybachs glide in that same lane of quiet dominance, often photographed beside his private jet. reinforcing the image of a man who now moves on his own schedule. Even his Teslas, Cybertruck included, feel less like environmental statements and more like proof that he enjoys living on the edge of what's next. Time, for Jake Paul, is worn as loudly as success. On his wrist sit watches that cost more than most homes. Richard Mille skeletonized Marvels, diamond-heavy Rolexes, and rare Patek Philippe's. Each piece less about telling time and more about signaling where he stands in the hierarchy of modern celebrity. Jets, yachts, designer fashion, and carefully staged chaos fill the gaps. Parties blur into promotions. Vacations double as branding. Every luxury is content, and every indulgence feeds the machine. But here's the question that lingers beneath the carbon fiber and private flights. Is this lifestyle the prize Jake Paul was chasing, or just the armor he wears as he steps into the most dangerous phase of his career yet? While others treated the internet like a hobby, Jake treated it like a battlefield. By the time most teenagers were figuring out who they were, millions already knew his name. Billions had watched him. Viral music before virality had rules. It's Everyday Bro became a punchline and a platinum record at the same time. Critics mocked it. The internet roasted it. Billboard still charted it. Jake had learned the most dangerous lesson in modern fame. Ridicule doesn't stop momentum. It often multiplies it. Forbes noticed. Money followed. But noise has a ceiling. Views fade. Algorithms change. And eventually, even controversy gets predictable. The adrenaline of virality wasn't enough anymore. He didn't just want attention. He wanted validation. Something real. Something you couldn't fake with edits or thumbnails. So, he chose the one place where excuses don't survive. The ring. At first, nobody took it seriously. A YouTuber boxing another YouTuber? A joke. A sideshow. But jokes stop being funny when people start getting knocked out. Jake trained obsessively. He marketed relentlessly. And then he started winning. Cleanly and violently. Then Askren went down in one round. Tyron Woodley fell, then came back and fell harder. Anderson Silva tested him. Nate Diaz survived him. Each fight added tension to the experiment. Was it still a stunt, or was it becoming something else? Then came Tommy Fury. For the first time, Jake Paul lost. And instead of collapsing, the brand did something unexpected. It hardened. Because loss didn't expose a fraud. It exposed a fighter. The aura cracked, but the story deepened. Behind the scenes, Jake wasn't just throwing punches. He was laying foundations. Most Valuable Promotions wasn't a vanity label. It was leverage. Amanda Serrano headlined Madison Square Garden. Women's boxing history was rewritten under his banner. The same critics who dismissed him now had to admit it. Jake Paul was changing the business, whether they liked him or not. Money stopped being the goal and became the tool. Venture capital, anti-fund, sports betting platforms, media companies, personal care products landing on Walmart shelves. Every fight wasn't just an event. It was an engine funding the next move. Then came the moment that broke the internet. Mike Tyson, Netflix, a global audience measured in continents, not clicks. The biggest boxing gate in U.S. history outside Las Vegas. Jake didn't just beat a legend. He mastered the modern attention economy at scale. This wasn't YouTube fame anymore. This was cultural dominance. But ambition doesn't negotiate with reality forever. When Jake stepped into the ring with Anthony Joshua, the experiment reached its edge. Size, power, experience. The gap was undeniable. For the first time, Jake Paul wasn't just challenged, he was stopped, knocked out, hospitalized. The illusion shattered in real time. And in that moment, something rare happened. The myth didn't die. It evolved. Because Jake Paul has never been about perfection. He's about pressure, about finding the limits of modern celebrity and leaning into them until something breaks. He's worn every label and monetized the backlash that came with each one. So the real question isn't whether Jake Paul belongs in boxing, entertainment, or business. The real question is this. Now that he's tasted everything, fame, money, victory, humiliation, and defeat, what does Jake Paul still need to prove? And when the cameras turn back on, who is he willing to become to prove it? Behind the headlines, pay-per-view numbers, and the constant performance of confidence. Jake Paul's personal life has always been a search for something more lasting than virality. Fame gave him access. Money gave him freedom. Early on, his relationships mirrored his rise, fast, public, and loud. His highly publicized romance with fellow internet star Tana Mongeau blurred the line between real emotion and content. The engagement, the Las Vegas ceremony, the pay-per-view spectacle, it was massive, dramatic, and ultimately empty. When it ended, it revealed a deeper truth. In a world built on clicks and cameras, intimacy struggled to survive. Then something changed. Away from influencer chaos, Jake found a different kind of connection with Dutch speed skating champion Jutta Leerdam. No stunts, no shock value. Just two elite competitors bonded by discipline, sacrifice, and pressure. Their relationship unfolded quietly, and by 2025, they were engaged. For the first time, Jake wasn't turning love into content. He was protecting it. Around the same time, he spoke about discovering new layers of his family history, including his Jewish heritage, another private moment, not a viral one. At the height of his YouTube dominance, Jake was pushing boundaries faster than platforms could react. Provocative thumbnails, shock value titles, jokes that landed hard, and sometimes crossed lines entirely. Critics accused him of forgetting who his audience was. Jake saw it differently. In the attention economy, restraint didn't trend. Outrage did. But controversy doesn't stay theoretical for long. Accusations of offensive language and racially insensitive remarks followed him into mainstream scrutiny. Former collaborators walked away, publicly accusing him of toxic behavior behind scenes. He dismissed much of it as jokes taken out of context, claiming a culture where nothing was off limits. To outsiders, it sounded less like humor and more like someone refusing to read the room as the room grew larger. Then came the money questions. Programs promising financial freedom to young fans. Mystery boxes, crypto promotions, NFT hype. To Jake, these were business experiments in a new digital frontier. To critics, they looked like lines being crossed. Young audiences encouraged to spend, speculate, and believe. Lawsuits followed, and in 2023, the SEC made its position clear, fining Jake for failing to disclose paid crypto promotions. But the real damage wasn't financial, it was reputational. Neighbors sued. During the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, Jake threw a massive house party that ignited national backlash. When questioned later, his dismissive comments poured gasoline on the fire. Sponsors distanced themselves. Media outlets sharpened their knives. The narrative hardened. Reckless, irresponsible, untouchable. Then the chaos turned serious. During the 2020 protests, Jake was filmed inside a looted shopping mall. He said he was documenting. Authorities charged him with criminal trespass and unlawful assembly. Days later, the FBI raided his home. For a moment, the bravado cracked. The charges were eventually dropped. Federal charges never came. But the image lingered. Jake Paul, standing at the edge of consequences he could no longer joke his way out of. And then came the allegations that no amount of branding could outrun. In 2021, sexual assault accusations surfaced from two women. He denied them unequivocally. The stories triggered fierce debate, public outrage, and online harassment aimed at the accusers. No criminal charges followed, but the stain didn't disappear. For the first time, the controversy wasn't about content, business, or ego. It was about character. Through it all, he did what he has always done. He kept moving. He fought. He built companies. Because controversy, to Jake Paul, has never been a detour. It's been the road. But here's the question that hangs over everything outside the ring. When the noise finally fades, when the algorithms move on, and when attention stops protecting you, what's left? And as Jake Paul continues to test how far fame can stretch before it snaps, one thing becomes impossible to ignore. The biggest fight of his life may not be against an opponent, but against the version of himself he's been outrunning all along. Before you go, if you want to support the channel and be part of what we're building, consider becoming a channel member through the link in the description. Members get early access to new videos, the chance to suggest future topics, and exclusive behind-the-scenes content. If you enjoyed this story, hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe for more long-form boxing documentaries like this one. And when you're ready, check out our deep dive into Anthony Joshua, another career shaped by dominance, discipline, and legacy. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next chapter.